Hello and welcome back to the Chris Ott channel, where I am now doing part 5 of this series on cause. Okay. Before I talked about the relationship between knowledge and belief and perception. Now there are 3 points that we've gone over pretty thoroughly, and that I'm going to just review what they are. First of all, when we talk about perception, we're using it in its original classical sense from the centuries before the 20th century, where it meant taking experience of anything, not just sense perception, but taking experience of your dreams, your thoughts, your memories. That was also included because you take experience of them. Now, the relationship between our perception or our experience and knowledge and belief, it goes about like this. All we know is our perception. That's the totality of our ability to know anything, okay, is our perception. And really all we can really know is that things appear as they do. We sort of take experience of things, and the only brute fact is things appear in the way that they do. That's how we perceive them. For instance, to see what I'm talking about, let's say from my angle in a room, I come in a room and there's a birthday cake, and I see 3 candles on the cake, but there's actually 4 candles. But I don't know this because one of the candles is blocked by the other candles, and so it's kind of behind them. And so I can't say whether, if somebody asked me how many candles and insisted there were 4, all I could really say is, well, it appears to me that there are 3. You might be right that there are 4. So this is the sense, and all we can be sure of is that things appear as they do. I can't really say. But if I, of course, change my angle, then I would see, there's 4. Anyway, the next point is that all that we believe is traceable back to some perception at some time or other by somebody. So if I say I believe England is an island, it's traceable to cartographers in the ancient times that circumnavigated the island and took nautical records and put together a map of it. That's still their perception, and I'm relying upon my perception of such their testimony in maps and books, which is sort of evidence of their perception. Now, the third thing is that perception is absolutely self-evident and cannot be denied. That things appear as they do is not inferred from something else. It's not an inference or a deduction. It's known by the brute fact that it's true, and it's undeniable. If I were to say that I am not perceiving, well, that's a kind of like, or perception isn't happening. Well, it's kind of that declaration itself is a declaration of some kind of experience that you're having. Okay, the experience that you are under the delusion that you're not experiencing. So it's inescapable. So that's an undeniable truth. So it's all we know, all we believe is based on it, and it can't be coherently denied. Experience. Okay? Now, what I have to now tell the listener is may confuse the listener. One of the problems that I have in communicating is that it's always it's difficult for me to keep in mind things that I know from reading lots of books or discussing with professors or hearing in lectures long ago, 20 years ago, that are now just, they just mill around in my thoughts. And I forget that other people, those things don't mill around in their thoughts. They've never heard of them. And to talk about them like we all just know, blah, 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 is very unfair. And it can get people kind of upset. I mean, I can sound sort of like a madman, What are you talking about? Well, in a university setting, the way they get around that is the professor, he assigns either printouts or books or articles that they're supposed to be responsible for having read on their own outside of class, so that when he begins to talk about something, they don't go, "What is he, crazy? Is he making this up? What's he talking about? Anybody know?" They're supposed to know. And if they don't and they're lazy, they can go talk to him in his office later and say, "What was it you were talking about? I didn't understand." And he'll try. So we don't have that opportunity. This isn't a class. So you're just going to have to take my word for something initially. And then you can go and look into it if you want, and you'll see that what I'm saying is true. All right. Now, when we talk about this, we were talking about cause, and what we meant by cause is that which is fundamentally responsible, what is really responsible for something. So when we talk about the cause of the universe, we mean that which is ultimately responsible, originally, or that first event, or that first thing, or something, whatever is responsible. That is what we mean. That first change, okay? That set into motion a chain of effects that led to this world we perceive. Now, it's very important subject to isolate exactly what we're talking about when we say we want to explain the universe. Now, initially that will sound funny, but it will become very clear in a moment. Incidentally, I have a camera that can only shoot so many minutes, so I'll have to get up and stop and start this camera a couple of times. All right. Okay. Since all we have access to is our experience, both our private experience, like our dreams, and our shared experience, like this video is a shared experience by many people, but both it's experienced nonetheless, and ultimately it's personally experienced by each individual. All we have access to is our experience, each one of us. Even when we rely upon the testimony of each other, that we're both experiencing the same thing, we're relying on our own experience of the other person's testimony, that they too are having this experience. So we're just all kind of like locked in this experience, And all our beliefs are traceable to it, to our experience, or someone's, and then secondly ours. And the perception is, our experience is undeniable, that it's happening. Okay, its cause is a subject of controversy and debate and theory, but that it is an effect that it is happening is undeniable. Now, having said those things, it would seem obvious that when we talk about the universe and wanting to explain the universe, we firstly mean that experience. Okay? Because that's what we really mean when we say the universe. We mean the universe of our experience. When I talk about, the dark side of the moon, I'm talking about what I would perceive if I was to take a rocket and fly around to the other side of the moon. You know, that's the world we want to explain. The world of our experience. Okay. What other world would we be trying to explain, and why? We're trying to explain this presentation, this appearance. Okay? How did it come about? All right? That would be the most sort of like spontaneous, automatic, common sense question we would ask, and the way we would frame it. We would frame the question, how do we explain this complex experience, which includes both private aspects like dreams and pain, and shared ones like visual perception of an object on a table. Okay, how do we explain all that in all its great complexity? Okay, remember that science is empirical. It's studying things that it can observe. Okay, at least initially did. And that remains its method on paper, but of course, well, we won't get into anything like complications about what science might be doing today, but science claims to be empirical. Now, even though it would seem obvious that when we go to explain the universe, we would understand that we meant our shared and personal experience, it's not how things went when people first began to look for the causes of things. And I'm going to have to stop a moment and tweak the camera, and then we'll continue. What I'm about to say is going to sound sort of strange because of the angle in which I'm coming at this. Starting with what's intuitively obvious, that we're explaining our experience, we ought to be. And then I'm going to show that that's not how philosophers have thought about it for the last 2,600 years. And what I'm going to say is going to sound very weird and counterintuitive. But I promise you that this occurred. Now, I'm starting all the way back at the beginning of true philosophy, which is Aristotle and Plato. Okay. Prior to that, nobody really tried to come up with theories about how we experience the world. Okay. It begins with them, and while Plato and Aristotle in ancient Greece had very different approaches to philosophy, which we won't go into, I have elsewhere. You can read up on it. They nonetheless shared a general view about perception. And I'm about to explain it, and I am not pushing, this is not my theory, this isn't something I'm pushing. I'm telling you what the approach to causation people have used for 2,600 years. Okay, 2,500 years. Okay. The objects, it was noticed by the Greeks when they thought about their perception of objects, that something happened between the object and something in their body. Okay? Now I'm going to try to demonstrate this. I wish I had a good object, but let's take this, let's say a little model of a chair. See? Okay. A little chair. Now, if I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about it, how I perceive this chair, I notice that when I cover my eyes, I cease to see the chair. All right? So something about this chair, all right, is needs to go through my eyes and into my body. Okay, that seems obvious because when I make a barrier, I stop seeing it. Okay. Now there was I don't need to go into that. Okay. However, now to show that something went in to my body through my eyes, and the same with my ears, we could do the same, or my nose, or my tongue. I can now set this aside, and I can cover over my eyes, and now I perceive a memory of the chair. So something of that chair not only was going into me while I was looking at it, but it's still there, that I can recall it inside. It's now inside my body, okay? Or apparently, okay? This is how it appeared. And so, therefore, it was concluded that my experience of the chair, okay, my experience of this object, is actually happening somehow in here. Now, the Greeks thought this was happening inside the chest. Today, we think it's inside the brain or the cranial cavity. It doesn't matter. Inside your body, okay, is where the experience is happening, all right? It was assumed, all right? And therefore, my experience of the chair is not the real chair, all right? Therefore, there's two chairs. Okay. One is the one that I'm experiencing right now in my body. I know I'm experiencing right now in my body because when I set it aside, and as I said, I cover my eyes, I can picture it. Okay? It's in my body. There's that chair. And there's the theoretical chair. Okay? This theoretical chair, why do I say it's theoretical? Because I know it by inference from my experience. I infer from my experience that supposedly I'm assuming is happening inside my body for reasons that I just explained. I infer from my experience that there is also a chair. Okay? Now, this difference between experience and reality, I'm going to give more reasons why they continue to believe this. They continue to believe this to this very moment. So it's 2,600 years of how we look at things. But I'm going to say it was a mistake, and I'm going to show why, and eventually why this is really revolutionary. Now, if we extend that concept, we see that it applies to all of our senses, okay, including touch, okay? Because when I touch this and I say I feel a coldness to this plastic, well, that coldness is an experience that's happening in my body. We now assume there's something out there, that we have theories about that are causing that experience of coolness when I touch this, okay? Such as, you know, energy waves and things like that, you know. But all we can truly say directly from our experience is that, well, it feels cool. And, you know, this is cool. Okay. And then everything else about its cause is theoretical, like coming up with it in my head. This, by inference and extended, gave rise to a very big concept in philosophy that you weren't taught about in school. We won't get into why you weren't taught about it in school. Well, I will a little in a moment, maybe I will. But it's called the external world. Now, it's a little misleading. That's what it's called. Well, it's been called that for 1,700 years. Since the 1700s. The external world is sort of a misnomer because it doesn't mean you could think, oh, it means what's outside of your body or what's outside of your head or what's outside of your brain. It's external to your head. All right? Like the real one is it's in the external world. That's not what it means. Because see, your brain is also in the external world. Okay? Nobody thinks that your brain is like just imagined or something. The brain is part of the external world. Your body, everything, all your blood, all your veins, all your nerves, that's the external world too. So it doesn't mean external, like literally outside of something, because there's no actual inside. It kind of creates a muckety muck in your head when you take the word too literally. It really means independent and completely separate from your experience. It's external of your experience. It's outside of the realm of experience. That's what it means. So, it is believed through history that your experience is an illusion. I'm not saying your experience is an illusion. Don't read anything into what I say. I'm saying this has been the view. It was a view of Plato. It's a view of Aristotle, and it's been the view. They struggle with it today, but it's still the current view. Okay, it's an illusion. And what's real is the unperceived external world. Now, how is this external world conceived by people who purport its existence? It's imagined like the world of experience. The world of experience is sort of used as the paragon for, the projecting this other world. But there's no basis for that at all. I mean, the external world, there's no evidence for it. It's completely outside the realm of human knowledge, and if anything that was in the realm of human knowledge is part of your experience. So by definition, it has to be unknowable. Now that sounds sort of mystical, but it's not. It's quasi-mystical. All right? That is, it is a created occult nominal cause. Remember from our words, occult means hidden. Okay? We have no evidence for it. It's also inconceivable. Occult means hidden to our minds and hidden from our senses. And it's nominal because how it explains anything, no one can say. How could you explain how something that's outside its experience could do something? How could you say anything about it? Okay. Now there are some philosophers who have said that we shouldn't. Kant was one. Now I'm going to switch the camera again. I want to continue just a little bit. Now, in about 1788, one of the greatest philosophers that ever lived, Immanuel Kant, said, "It remains a controversy that the external world is still, we only can believe in it basically on faith, okay? And we know nothing about it, okay? And we can't prove it." And he said it's like a controversy of philosophy that's just remains just a guess, like that we don't really know anything about reality, according to philosophy itself. I'm not saying that. I'm telling you what Kant said about this external world. Now, in the 20th century, the early 20th century, people wrote whole books trying to find a way to defend the existence of the external world. They decided it was common sense. It was common sense that there's an external world. Well, kinda, but not really, because when you really examine it, it's not common sense at all. It's so not common sense that that we see an illusion and that we've never seen the real world. It's so not common sense that if you say that, to people who don't know what you're talking about, they will think you are psychotic. Okay? I know. People have thought I'm crazy. I've had people just get up and walk out of the room because they think these are my ideas. It's not my idea. I'm going to get to my idea later. But you pick up any book on the metaphysics of perception or reality, any book written by philosophers, in the East or West, no, I don't know, in the English-speaking world, let's just say for a moment, and you will find the word external world right away. So usually on the first page. It's throughout. And it's throughout the books. It doesn't matter what the theory is, whether it's there are different theories called identityism and functionalism and stuff and behaviorism, but they all have the word external world. Okay. Some of these books even deny that there's an internal world, but they still talk about the external world, which is funny because then what's it? What are they differentiating it from? Now that might go over your head, but anyway, don't worry about it. That theory is called functionalism, and we won't go into it here. We have elsewhere. Okay, now I have to say another reason why this external world seems so nifty, seems so useful, and then I'll say why it doesn't work. Okay. First of all, I said that, it seems to explain why, this difference between this thing that's supposedly out here and then the experience that's supposedly happening inside of my brain or my chest, according to the Greeks or whatever. Seems to be a way to sort of articulate that. But there's another reason why it's been a handy theory, the external world. The reason is that if three people are surrounding this chair and we all describe it, and we all describe it a little different because we're at different angles, we're at different distances, and maybe one person is colorblind, we all have a different description, but they all seem to be understandable in terms of one cause for all of our experience, even though the effect in us, the internal, what you would call the internal experience, is a little different. Okay? It's handy to because we want to have a single cause of all those three people's slightly different experience. Okay? Of like what are they experiencing? The idea of some external something in some external something or other. Meaning independent of any of the three of us, is a single cause. Okay? So the external world becomes this cause of our experience. Okay. That's the reason. Is because all three of us see the same thing. We see it a little differently. How do we explain that? It's obviously not in any of the three of us' own imagination because we're all seeing it. So we hypothesize the existence of an external world, and we kind of then hypostatize it. That means imagine it like it's a physical thing, something. Okay. Now, I have now explained why there's a case to be made for the external world. That's why it survived for 2,600 years. Nobody can think of anything else. But where it fails is that because it is an occult, made-up, theoretical entity, this external world, beyond the realm of our being able to perceive it with our senses, or imagine it, or picture it, or even have a concept of it. It's even beyond our concepts. As soon as you're conceiving of it, it's part of your internal world, see? So, because of that, it is entirely a nominal cause. And you can go back to my glossary. That's why we went over those words. This occult cause is entirely a nominal cause. It is not actually a cause in the sense of an explanation for our experience. Because nobody, even in principle, could ever say, or even have reason for a theory of how such an occult, theoretical, made-up thing that's not, beyond even conceiving, does its causing. Now, if you think you're explaining that by telling me about light, electromagnetic wavelengths of light, and then they come through my eyeball, and then they hit my optic nerve, and then they sizzle down to my brain, and then, chemicals. All of that is the external world. You've said nothing about the connection between... All of that is part of my experience. All the tests in the laboratory, and the eyeball, and the brain, all of that is part of the experience, part of the internal world, let's say, by this kooky concept of external, internal world, this two-world view, okay? You've never said a word about the external world when you were talking about the light and the frequencies and the eyeball and the optical nerve. All of that is in the world of our experience. It is not one word was said about this occult cause. So that is not an explanation of the experience. Now let me emphasize what I just said a different way. There is currently in vogue a lot of theories that do not see the real problem that has underlied philosophy for 2,500 years. These people aren't philosophers, and they've caught the attention of young, earnest kids trying to use their mind. And it's so sad because they're very silly ideas. They don't really even understand the problems, okay? Let's take one of those. It's called the holographic universe theory. The idea is that we've come up with these virtual reality simulations like computer games and stuff. And in our movies and our fiction, we have like the holodeck in Star Trek. And so they speculate, we could be in some higher civilizations, virtual reality that they're creating. Okay. And that explains the universe. So, all right. This the silly thing is that it's an infinite regress. Well, if that were true, by the way, they say it's so plausible that it's like, it's impossible it's not true because it's so plausible. So if that's true, then it's just as plausible that those people are in somebody else's virtual reality. And those people, it's just as plausible they're in. So by the same argument, it goes on infinitely. And so everybody's inside of somebody else's like mirror. And in philosophy, we go, well, okay, something went wrong when you have an infinite regress. It doesn't prove it true, it proves it false. Okay? Although it's a trip to think about it, especially if you take drugs, but it's not deep. Okay? But worse than that, it doesn't even address the question of if we were in someone else's virtual reality holodeck, how do we experience? How are we taking experience of it? So it's still not explaining our experience. It's just got an imaginary bunch of, holodecks, inside holodecks. But it doesn't say anything about the connection between the external world and the internal world. Theoretical external world. Once again, don't think I'm explaining our current views. External world, internal world have no place in my own thinking. But I only know of the world of our experience, but I'm going to explain it. Okay? Whereas previous concepts do not explain our experience and don't even grasp that that's really what we have to explain. If you can't explain I already showed that our entire universe is a universe of experience. We can't go outside of it. So if you can't explain it, you haven't explained anything. Because even your explanations fall into the realm of your experience, okay? Theories are part of our experience. So you have to see what it is we need to explain. Okay, and they don't. They don't even try. There is no current theory for how it is that this external world causes our internal experience, which they call internal experience. It's just a brute claim. It's supposed to be common sense. But when you go to tell a person who's a common person, they'll think you're psychotic. So it doesn't seem like it's common sense. It seems like there's something terribly, terribly wrong. And to see what's wrong, we would need to go into the problem in general and in principle about using such nominal causes and the idea that of looking for a cause and imagining it like the thing that's being caused. Anyway, I'm getting too far out. I'm going to stop here. I've introduced the concept of the external world. I'll think about how to make it clearer next time, and then we will be ready to talk about another way of explaining our experience. Okay, thank you very much. See you next time.